All right, Nick, how are you today?
Yeah, another week at the OK Corral. It's just hanging in there.
Been a tough week. Had a few days off, did you or not?
No, not a few days off. Many days of stress.
You had you had a bad experience with the mortgage.
Um, okay, so if you remember last week, I was raising my glass of wine in
Celebrating.
celebration. Yeah, now I was actually hiding something as well. Okay, and that was that. So we do our chats on a Wednesday, just for everybody's benefit. Although they go up on the Sunday onto your website normally, on the YouTube channel. On the Monday, I think it was, which was the second working day of the month, if I'm not mistaken, I had an embargo slapped onto my bank account, right, by the
So,
tax office.
so what does
I
that
can
mean? That your bank account gets shut down, can't access cash?
Um, what I was seeing was a withheld amount.
Okay.
Okay, so I had my balance, and on this occasion, my balance was greater than what the tax office embargo was. But I can tell you, to see all of a sudden, effectively €6,000 being unavailable for me, bearing in mind I have to pay all of this deposit and all of the taxes and the fees,
Yeah,
etc., for
you
my
need you need
purchase.
access to your cash.
€6,000. Yes. Uh, when I saw, oh my God. Here's the thing. This was for the debt that I'd paid off last month.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now, with that in mind, let's go back to how this whole thing started, because I would like, in this conversation today, just to give advice to people about what can happen. What are the effects when you, effectively, like me, when you screw up? What can happen? What are the consequences? Right? This is real world stuff. So now, Stuart, you and I, we're both the same ilk here. We're both autonomo, right? We do our quarterly modellos,
Yep.
the quarterly declarations, right? Now, in your case, how does it work with you? Does your accountant let you know what your tax bill is and then you pay it the following month, or how do you do things?
No, everything gets done. I hand in all my paperwork and things like
Yeah.
that, as you said, on a 3 monthly basis. And I get a little note saying how much I have to pay or something, and make sure that I had that money in my bank account. And then on the 21st, I think of
The following month.
October this month. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you do it in September, obviously. You get
Yeah.
everything. You get everything ready. September being the last month, everything ready in October. Then on the 21st, so in what, 7 or 8 days' time, out it goes.
Right. Okay. So you're right. That is the way it works. The only thing about that is, of course, when the accountant comes back and says to you, right, your tax bill is X. Normally, you then have two options. Either you're going to go through with the payment, as you say, on the 21st, excuse me, of the following month, or you can then apply for split payments. And normally that would be either splitting the payment into 3 or 4 individual payments,
Yep.
okay, spread out over 3 or 4 months, right? Okay, so here's what happened with me. We go all the way back to 2020. So round about, well, it was quite early on, really. It's kind of, I suppose, April, May. I had a bit of a personal crisis. Okay, doesn't matter what it was; it's irrelevant. But it was the kind of crisis where I got to the point where I was in a very dark place. I had to get myself out of the situation, and to do that, I hunted around and I sought help and assistance, psychologists, and all kinds of different things. And I spent some money, quite a lot of money actually, to, dare I say, almost reinvent myself
Okay.
and my way of thinking on certain things. So what I did was great, and I don't regret it for an instant. Okay, I did what I had to do to get myself out of the dark place. However, the consequence of that was that because I was putting my emotional, physical state, etc., all of that first, then I didn't take care of the tax obligations.
So you
Okay,
neglected the finance side of it.
yes. Okay, and I was thinking to myself, okay, well, let me get through all of this, and then I'll start to take care of that and start to repair the situation. I might get some interest added on. I might even get a couple of fines. Okay, but fine. I'll work my way through it. It'll take me some time. I'll handle it. Okay. So we get to this year. So bearing in mind, again, let's be honest here. I really neglected. So before last year, I was always up to date with my quarterly tax bills. Okay, but to be honest, in terms of 2020, I didn't do any of it really until we got to the beginning of 2021, by which time it's become effectively too late as far as the tax office was concerned. So, Stuart, I don't know if you've ever seen, there are actually 3 stages. So this really is now advice for people out there, right? Whether you are employed with a nomina or you are autonomo. Okay, in terms of how the process works when you get behind on your tax payments. So you can always ask your accountant for, there's a report that they can get. It's like the status of your debts, if you like, call it. Okay. There are 3 stages. So stage number 1, which is what you would go through normally, Stuart, and what I was going through before last year, which they call aplazam or fraccionado. Okay. In other words, these are the scheduled payments that you are due. Now, because of COVID, by the way, so for give you an idea, I took one option that the first quarter of this year, there was an option to postpone that payment to October. Okay, so even though it's a difference of 9 months, it's still within the aplazam status. So it's not defined as an actual debt, right? As in an overdue debt, because you're within the scheduled payment. Okay, so that's always a thing to look for. The next phase is this. So if you go over the scheduled payment deadline, then you then go into the ejecutivo de pagado phase. Okay, and that's the point then when the tax office then will say, right, you haven't paid that according to the schedule. Now we're going to send you another payment request, and normally, and the difference can be about a month. Okay, where now they're going to add on some interest. Okay, albeit even then they'll add on a lot of interest, but if you pay that one on time, they reduce the interest. Okay, so you're still in this the phase of ejecutivo, the let's call it the effective phase. Then if you don't do it, if you don't handle that, then a couple of months later it moves into what's called the fase de embargo. Okay, now, so how did I get wind of this? Well, this kicked off for me. So where are we? We're in I don't even know what planet I'm on these days. October. I think the first one for me was April. Imagine, without any notification whatsoever, right? No phone calls, no emails, nothing.
No.
I woke up one day, logged into my bank account, and it was empty. Literally zero.
Yeah. So I think they send notifications to, there is a place that they send them to, but it's your responsibility to find out where they are. They don't send it to your home. They don't give you a phone call. You have to go in with like a digital certificate to access it.
Well, no. Now, if you remember, so yeah, my caveat to what I've just been saying, if you remember, I was having all the problems with my previous
with your
accountant.
I remember.
Yeah, exactly. So my accountant was not handling things in the proper manner. So it might well be that there was a notification saying we are moving into the embargo phase and we're going to do an embargo on the bank account on such a date. But I wasn't notified of that by either my accountant or anybody else for that matter.
Yeah, okay. So I say this because the other day I asked the guy that does my accounts. I said, "Look, if Hacienda tries to get in contact with me, do you guys get a notification?" He said, "Yeah, we get a notification. Then we go inside the platform there and we check out what it is and we let you know."
Yeah, and you're right. That's the way it should happen. Now, even then, though, during the pandemic, I have the distinct impression, and this is now where my new accountant has been helping out and looking at the history, that actually there have been notifications missing. Right? So things have not actually gone in the way that they would normally do as such. But anyway, going back to April, so I woke up one morning and the way it works is I can't remember what the embargo amount was for. I'd already taken care of all of my end of month bills, beginning of month bills, Social Security, the whole shooting match. But effectively, all of a sudden, my bank account said withheld amount, therefore balance available 0. Right? Now, here's the next thing I want to say now to make everybody aware of. If you are employed, so you have a nomina, okay? And you get yourself into a situation where, and obviously normally your tax in terms of your salary would be paid by your employer.
Yep.
But maybe you've got some additional income which you have to take care of with the Declaración de la Renta every year. Yep. Okay. Now, if you don't pay that and you get to the embargo phase, then the tax office can do the embargo, but legally they have to leave you with the national minimum wage.
Okay.
700 and whatever.
Okay.
740 euros, I think it is. Right? So they can take whatever they want up to that limit.
Okay.
With autonomos, there is no limit.
Well, there
they
you go.
Take the whole lot.
So autonomos getting done over again.
Exactly. Right? So I got no notification for whatever reason. Okay. And they'd literally cleaned out my entire balance. Okay. So the next thing I can say is this embargo phase continues until they recoup all the money. Okay. So 2 things now I want to say about this. A, the way they seem to operate is, so the next attack on my bank account, as it were, was actually the beginning of June. Okay. So they did April. They skipped May and did June. And this is consistent. They seem to do it every 2 months until they've recuperated what they're needing. And they also seem to do it exactly on the, I misquoted before, it's the 2nd working day of the month. Okay, that's exactly when they do it. So bearing that in mind, you can, if you know you're going to be in this embargo phase,
get the money
out. Exactly, take the money out of your bank account, because the crazy thing is, they do the embargo on the 2nd working day. So if you've taken the money out before, you can put it back into your bank account after, and they can't touch it, or they don't. Yeah, they don't touch it. Right? The embargo, the withheld amount, only occurs on that day, and that's it. Okay.
So you don't get like a bank penalty if you go into red numbers there or not?
No. Well, I mean, obviously, as you know, Stuart, maybe banks, some banks work differently to others. I've never been penalised by my bank, Kaiser Bank. Yeah. Maybe that's one good thing for once with them, bearing in mind what we talked about before. So yeah, it doesn't seem to have an effect on your. Yeah, it doesn't have an effect on your status either. I mean, the only thing it actually does have an effect on really is, which was important for me when I was going through my mortgage application process. Some banks, of course, require you to have this certificación de estar from the Agencia Tributaria. In other words, this is your certificate declaring that you are up to date with your payments. Now, again, when I say up to date, again, coming back to the Aplazan scenario, there was a tax due for the 1st quarter, but I took the schedule to pay it in October, right? So even though it's 9 months later, effectively, if you've gone down that route, you're still up to date according to the schedule of the payments. Okay. It's only if you go into the embargo phase all of a sudden that you are not up to date.
Okay.
So in other words, I couldn't get the certificate, right? Bearing that in mind, after having spoken to my accountant at the beginning of September, I made a decision. I'd already been paying things off as best as I could. So I decided I had the resources finally to pay the balance off. So here's the critical thing. 14th of September, I effectively made 3 separate payments on the one day to cover 3 of the different quarters, the outstanding amounts. The whole thing paid, right? In other words, 2020 cleared, and I'd paid off the entire debt according to what the embargo was. So imagine me effectively last week on, when would it have been, the 4th or 5th of October, when I logged into my bank account and saw 6,000 again withheld, right, by the bank in respect of this embargo, right? And I'm thinking, well, just hang on a second. I've just gone and paid the thing on the 14th of September. So not only have I paid all of the outstanding amount, but you've now taken the same money from me again. Oh,
yeah. So what was, they just had their computer programmed to take that money out on that day, had they?
Yeah. So now what my accountant has since told me is this. Now, Stuart, again, I'm not, you and I both the same. We're not into Spain bashing here. This is not what it's all about, right? We love our lives here. We're settled here. You deal with things. You adapt to how the system works, right? But I'm a software developer. I work in IT. And for me, there's no excuse for this, what I'm about to say. I made the payment on the 14th of September. Apparently, it takes 3 weeks for that payment to clear. Now, there's no excuse for that, not with the modern technology we have. It's not rocket science. They have my NIE number, which is my tax identification. They have the number of the Modelo, the actual payment request that it's gone for. The money went out of my bank that same day. For it to take 3 weeks to actually clear in their system is just absolutely ridiculous. So, in other words, what actually happened at the beginning of last week, if you do the mathematics of days, 14th of September into the 4th of October was not 3 weeks. So the payment hadn't cleared, right? So the stupidity of it is, I'd have been better off saying to my accountant, well, actually, I could pay it today, the 14th, but it won't clear in time. So rather, I won't pay it and I'll let the embargo take it. Then I wouldn't have been in that situation last week of, I've paid the $6,000 and now I've lost another $6,000 through the embargo. It's ridiculous, Stuart.
Get the shock. That's right.
Yeah. So the result of this then was actually on this Monday, my accountant sent her lawyer down to the tax office in Torremolinos with all the documentation, basically saying, why have you done an embargo on this guy when he's paid the damn thing? It's ridiculous. They got the embargo lifted that afternoon.
Yeah, well, that was quick.
Well, yeah, bearing in mind somebody somewhere online probably earned a bit of interest off it, and I've had to incur now a lawyer's fee. Yeah. To make this happen. I mean, it's a disgrace, isn't it? But anyway.
Yeah, well, again, you could probably take some type of action if you wanted to go down that route. But is it worth it? Probably not.
It's not worth it. You know, the point I'm making behind all of this is this: I live in Spain. I work in Spain. It is my responsibility to take care of my obligations, of course, and that includes paying the tax that I need to pay as best as I can when it's required. Okay. So I don't need anybody, any of your viewers, to start having a go at me saying, you know, X, Y, Z. I did what I had to do last year. Bang. Life is not always perfect. Things can go wrong. It's what happens after that, how you get over it, how you deal with the consequences. Agreed?
True.
And just to make people aware of what can happen with the tax office and how they handle things. So there you go. That's
you got to be careful with the agencia tributaria. You do indeed.
They're ruthless. Well, I've heard with the UK. I mean, again, your reference point obviously would be Australia. My only reference point is the UK.
Yep.
I'm aware that doing embargoes on bank accounts in the UK really is the measure of last resort. They do actually try to communicate with you directly to, at the very least, make some kind of payment agreement.
Yeah.
Right? Even when it's got to that point. What my accountant has told me is the minute it gets into this fase de embargo here, that's it. Yeah. No payment agreements can be made. There's nothing you can do to stop it. Right, unless you pay the whole thing off or the embargo takes all the money. It's non-negotiable. That's it. So it's extremely ruthless, and especially, as I've already said, for the autonomos. Yeah, it's no fun, I tell you.
Well, you don't even get that minimum wage, as you said.
No. See, your bank account, I'm thinking, bearing in mind this was the second working day of the month. Now, this happened twice to me, April and then June. And it's like, well, how the hell am I supposed to live now for the rest of this month, right? I mean, it's a crisis all of a sudden.
It does become one. That's it. So but at least it's been sorted, Nick. All right, we'll change topic, Nick. Anything that's caught your attention this week in the news?
Yeah, it just this one came out of nowhere. I just saw it on the BBC site yesterday. It's all kicking off between President Biden and Spain, and in particular the leader of the. Okay, so basically, Joe Biden, on behalf of America, is out of nowhere is asking for an apology from Spain for what happened 500 years ago. Yeah. Right, as in Columbus, followed by the conquistadors, and apparently the indigenous people over in the US there and Latin America were subject to all kinds of horrors and stuff. Look, I'm not a historian, so I'm not going to offer any opinions on this. I welcome any Americans I know there's quite a few that watch your videos, and also quite a few Spanish. So I invite them to join in and let's get the opposing views here. But I just found it, for me, it was just kind of shocking that all of a sudden we're facing almost something akin to a diplomatic row, if you like, for something that was going on 500 years ago. I mean, the one guy, this guy Pablo Casado, who's the leader of the PP, the Popular Party. Yeah. So he has described the Spanish colonial expansion into the Americas as, and I quote, the most important event in history after the Roman Empire.
Okay.
Right? Now that's, even that is, okay. I don't know about that one. Again, answers on a postcard, folks. What's the most important event in history? World War II, the British Empire, for example, doing its thing, the Dutch Empire. I mean, there's a whole list. There were a lot of empires, Nick. Let's be honest. Yeah. I mean, this is a movement. I think it's called the indigenism movement. I think in the Americas at the moment. Apparently, somebody told me a couple of weeks ago that it was Hugo Chavez, the former Venezuelan president, that sowed the seeds of this movement. And it's spreading around the Americas, what has been for the last few years, and they've pulled down statues of Christopher Columbus. And I've seen all that, but to get to the point where the president himself is saying, I think it's about time we had an apology from you lot. I'm not sure about that. I don't know.
Well, I remember the Australian Prime Minister apologised to the Indigenous peoples of Australia back, I don't know how long ago it was, but for what happened there, and obviously, it had nothing to do with him per se. It was something that happened in history, and he was representing the country at a time.
Recently in Britain, of course, you've had the Windrush scandal.
What was that one about?
So that one was about what happened with immigrants from the West Indies who came into the UK and then got sent back. Right? Yeah. So there has been throughout, especially the last couple of hundred years, these things where modern leaders have ended up effectively apologizing for something that happened in the past. My problem with this is It's 500 years ago. I mean, where are you going to get
Yeah.
the evidence of certain things that happen? It's a difficult one. And again, I'm not offering any opinions. I you know, I can certainly understand maybe American people, indigenous people saying that they were treated badly and the conquistadors just did all these horrors to them. Conversely, you look at the Spanish angle to say, well, look, we effectively reinvented the world by going over there, right? And it's difficult, but it's 500 years ago. I mean,
yeah. But it is a movement that has sprung up, and people want an apology. And as you said, Biden's got on board. I won't talk too much about Biden because he's also quite controversial. People flare up in the comment section when you mention his name. And
is there any president recently who's not been controversial?
I don't think so. So. Maybe Jimmy Carter. The problem with this is that you've got people that want an apology, then you've got the other side that don't want to give an apology, and that's where you get the division in society. As always, everything's very divisive, Nick.
It is. I know. That's why I'm on this one, Stuart. I'm 100% sitting on the fence.
yeah, but I mean, the European countries back in the day did what they were always going to do. They were the most advanced nations at the time. They had the ships. They were looking for resources. They sent people, overseas. Whether Columbus was Spanish, whether he was Italian or Portuguese, he was sent off to find new lands, to find riches, as they say.
Well, you look at what the British Empire did. I mean, don't forget, we steamed into Africa.
Of course.
And by the way, the French as well, they steamed into Africa. We also went to the Far East there, and we were in India and all over there, the subcontinent. It's just...
history is complicated, but,
I just think it's very difficult to start, let's face it, the world is totally different to what it was 500 years ago. People are different. Our knowledge of the world is different. To try and make a comparison to the point where you want people to say we are sorry for what happened then, it's very difficult because the whole...
Well, again, it's something that's going to divide opinion, but what can we do? What can we do?
No.
It feeds the newspapers.
Yeah, it just shocked me because, and interestingly, I've not seen anything on El País about it yet. I was looking today, funnily enough, and I thought, well, where is it?
Well, the Madrid Premier was in the States. Ms. Ayuso was in the States a few weeks ago, and she was talking about this, and she was actually quite angry. So obviously, it's been on the cards for some time, and she caught wind of it and addressed the situation there, but. It is what it is, Nick, as they say, and whether Spain does apologise for this, I don't know whether they will or not. Maybe Pedro Sanchez is the guy to apologise. I don't know.
Well,
because obviously Casado's not going to apologise.
Yeah, well, there's Casado, and then I think the leader of Vox as well.
Well, of course,
has put his 2 pennies worth in. Interestingly enough, in the news article I was reading. So the leader of Spain's far-right Vox party, Santiago Abascal, he denounced Biden as the lamentable president of the United States.
Well, if it was up to Vox, they'd invade America again tomorrow if they could, and stick the flag up there as well.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I'll be interested to see what Mr. Sanchez has to say about the whole thing. Yet he's keeping quiet about it.
Well, I think he wants to be friends with Biden, so I'm sure that he will. I'm sure that he will say something on the subject. But anyway,
of course, because I suppose they're both reasonably. Well, we know Sanchez is very socialist. I suppose, being Biden being Democrat, and that's also the equivalent of socialism over there.
Well, there should be a bit of feeling between the two.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll cut it short there, Nick.
Yeah.
Good chatting to you again, and we'll be in contact for next week, okay?
Okay, then. All right, you take care.
All right, have a good one. See you later.
All right, bye.
Bye.